We gotta get started.
Hi, Shelby. How are you?
Shelby out there?
Yeah, he's muted.
Hello.
There you go.
Shelby? Where are ya? Okay,
Dr.
all
No.
right, it's good. Hey, salute. Very good. All right.
Welcome, Jennifer.
And you said that
Thank you.
Shelby might be in the... Shelby, are you out there? I got to bring you in. If
Yes,
you are.
I'm here.
Let me
Welcome,
see.
Shelby.
Hello.
The proof
There
is
you
in the video. There you are. Okay, very
There
good.
he
Hey,
is.
this is right up your alley because I want to talk about the State Central Committee meeting right off the get-go, okay? So, you were there.
Oh, yeah.
You were sitting right next to me about the State Central Committee. By the way, Jennifer Gross is with us, and I just want to plug it also. We have one and only Chris Long coming on at 8 o'clock, okay? And then we're going to talk about some of that Haitian, the Somalian daycare center stuff. He's got some insider information on the Somalian daycare corruption. So that'll be good. All right. So anyhow, I want to just talk a little bit here for a minute about some of these races. I wouldn't say I took some slack, but I just think that there were some people that were not quite understanding what I was saying. I want to talk about this here for a minute. Sprague and Sturbich. Sturbich. I got to pronounce his name right. All right. Robert Sprague, Marcel Sturbich. What had happened at the committee, and I gave an update, and I was giving it as an update as to what the committee did and what their reasoning was behind it and stuff like that. So disappointing that they endorsed. Okay. I was hearing some of that kind of stuff, and I'd like to hear from you. Yeah, if you're in the chat, please contribute in the chat. All right. Now, we have 66 members on that committee. And just because we endorse doesn't mean that all 66 people were in favor of endorsing. That's the first thing I got to get out. All right. So I know Sturbich. He's been on the podcast. I've talked to him many times in person and stuff. So I like him. And I was one who said not to endorse in this particular race. So I want to make sure that that's understood. Now, what I was getting at when I was giving a recap was that the party as a whole had decided that they were going to endorse in this race. And then they gave some of the reasoning behind it. Now, these two guys could not be more polar opposites because you got Robert Sprague, who's a complete insider, and Marcel Sturbich, who's a complete outsider. All right? One is a grassroots, the grassroots candidate. The other is the establishment, or if you want to use that term, but you just say the guy that's been with the Republican Party for the last 20 years or whatever. Okay. So the committee weighed the pros and cons of it, and I knew that if an endorsement was going to take place, that it would obviously go to Robert Sprague. And I told Sturbich in that there is no way the committee is going to endorse him. But I really honestly felt that there would be no endorsement at all because I said you're a strong candidate as well.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Right.
Yeah. So I was really, especially since we did not endorse in this race, which I was completely fooled on because I figured if there was a race we were going to endorse in, it would be this one. I thought. But that one, Jay Edwards had the endorsement of Vice President J.D. Vance right here from Ohio and everything. And, that kind of swayed things. He had Bernie Moreno's endorsement. Christina Rogner had lots of endorsements as well. I mean, we got two strong candidates there. They're just going to have to knock heads and see the best man or woman win. But in this race here, I was really quite surprised by the whole thing. So, let me just talk to. Let me get you on here for a minute, because you were there. And it's all your
Oh, yeah.
fault, by the way.
No.
Okay.
As-
All right.
as
Give me
maybe
your
my-
2 cents. Give me your 2 cents of the committee meeting, okay? Particularly
Well-
in regards to Sprague and Sturbridge, if you would.
Well, okay. Well, again, I don't want to get into all the nuances. It would be another 5-hour meeting like what we had on Friday. But as you know, as the meeting started out, I was the one that wanted us just to not endorse, period, in contested races. And that did not happen, obviously. And then because my position is now we're into this moral dilemma of what you just spoke of. How did we not endorse in Rogner and Edwards? But then we go ahead and do it for Sprague and Stribbage. Okay, so now there is this perception. Now we are favoring one person over another in a contested primary. So, I mean, I heard arguments from even within our own conservative caucus of why we should make exceptions. But as I had stated before when we did this with Vivek, is that now you've opened up the door. There's always going to be an exception. And you had conservative candidates that stand up and were saying, we need to do this. You know, normally I would not be endorsing, but. Well, as soon as they say that word, but, everything that they've said previous goes out the window. Okay. So my position is that we need to start standing on principle, and whether setting our own feelings aside of who we may personally like or dislike, we need to just stay out of it in these contested races.
Okay, I agree with you there. As long as it's a contested race that has 2 viable candidates, I don't have a problem with it. If it's just, somebody throwing their name in, it's forget that junk. But I thought here we had 2 viable candidates.
Yeah.
Let me get Jennifer in here, our guest here tonight, Ohio State Rep, District 45. Jennifer, were you surprised at all with what the committee did?
Yes, I was. I genuinely felt like they would endorse you all. Sorry, Shelby, but that you would endorse in both races. And when there was no endorsement in the Rogner-Edwards race, the presumption then would be you got to be consistent. And you're absolutely right. I think the people of Ohio have every right to be really, quite frankly, disgusted. Because now it's like, well, what is really going on? And if anything, I think when things like this happen, people wake up. They realize, I'm getting a slate card, and in a primary, I only get one candidate. Why am I only getting one candidate in a primary? A primary is supposed to be the battle where the best woman or man wins, right?
Right. Battle tested, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Right. I know that when I ran, it was householder at the time, but my race was an open race and the Central Committee did not endorse. Another curious thing that you guys did, Shelby, was you endorsed against sitting representatives. I'm not so sure. I mean, look, the Blue 22 thing happened. It's over. Even the speaker said, let that go. I'm very compartmentalized. I have moved on. You can be frustrated with people, but I'm compartmentalized on a lot of things when it comes to that. If I'm working with you and you're pro tax reduction, but you're, adamantly opposed with me on another issue, I can still partner with you on the issue we're common on, that we agree on. But in this case, it's really confusing to the electorate. Well, then now what do we believe? What do the people do? I'll tell you what they do. I bet you they go out and they do their research, which ultimately is the right thing to do in the first place.
Yeah.
And so maybe the people will get more involved in a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, because they're looking at the party. The problem is this feeds into the narrative of what the left says. The Republican Party attacks its own, and the left always takes care of themselves and each other. And we eat each other alive.
Yeah, we eat each other alive. All right, John Pleshnik here. Give me your 2 cents on the whole thing, the State Central Committee.
So, Joe, when I ran for Republican State Central Committee in 2020, the number one issue that conservatives had in a lot of contested races, mine included, was not endorsing in primaries, because people have a right to choose their nominee. Yes, the Republican Party exists to win the general election. But part of winning that election is getting the absolute strongest candidate as our nominee. And we don't know if someone has a glass jaw until someone takes a swing at them. If the first real election someone has is a general against a Democrat, which frankly is prison rules every time, a lot of candidates that look really good on paper fall apart. And so rigging a primary may seem like a good idea to get a buddy in there, but it usually results in weaker candidates and less wins. And while we've had an incredibly strong series of elections, I think in large part due to Donald J. Trump bringing enormous amounts of Union Democrats to our side, we can't count on that forever. We will have bad years. And you run a weak candidate in a bad year and you lose. So I agree with the principle, the general rule that you should not endorse in primaries for the ORP. I say general rule because let's be real. If Hitler decides to run, the party does need to protect itself by saying, no, you do not get our branding. And sometimes an endorsement in rare cases is a good idea, even in a contested primary. I'm not an absolutist, but 99.9% of the time, you let the candidates duke it out. And, on the one hand, people are disappointed with the ORP in meddling in the Secretary of State primary. But I will say this, I'm grateful that the Ohio Republican Party did not get involved in the race for state treasurer between Jay Edwards and Christina Rogner, because we need a good relationship with our vice president, very likely the 48th president of the United States in the future. We need a good relationship with our senior senator from Ohio, Bernie Moreno. And when those two endorse, to listen to a couple local candidates and state reps over the future president of the United States and the senior U.S. senator from Ohio, that was a clear right decision. You stay out of that race. I'm glad that there was at least that much wisdom on the part of the committee.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go to Brian here in just a minute, but I want to get Shelby's take on one other thing. Shelby.
Yes.
So, in my opinion, we have a decent amount of conservatives on the state central committee. That's my opinion. Would you agree? So,
define decent amount. I mean, that's the problem.
We have enough on the committee because the threshold was 44 votes. So it means, and there were only 64 people. 2 were absent, I believe. So we have 20 conservatives, would you say? So my thought is we have a lot of people that
yes,
say,
but of varying degrees.
Well, we have a lot of people that say they don't want to endorse, but we didn't come anywhere near that threshold. So a lot of the people who normally said they don't want to endorse decided to endorse.
Right. That's why I said define when you say that we've got 20 conservatives on there. I mean, again, we need to define within ourselves what our platform is going to be and how we handle these circumstances. And then that fits into some commentary of what was shared with Jennifer and by John. Right now, when we talk about we want to protect against certain candidates, so that you don't want to take an absolute position, and then Jennifer saying that she wants to compartmentalize, and I can understand that. Part of what I thought that this job was going to be, and again, I'm a first-term committee man, is that we're supposed to be the ones holding the people, the representatives to task based on the platform that the party has developed and is presenting to the public.
Yes.
And so what's happening now is the tail is wagging the dog when we are just automatically saying we're going to back incumbent Republicans, whether that they're contested or not, when there's enough evidence out there. I am referencing back to the Blue 22. There's enough evidence there that they did not follow the platform because they've shown that they cannot be trusted by voting with Democrats. Okay, so that's point number one. And then again, opening up the field and keeping it open to as many candidates as possible is just like what John was saying. You're going to find out who the glass jaws are that are going to drop out fairly quickly. So part of that vetting process is allowing as many people in and encouraging as much participation in the primary process and us staying on the sidelines when that occurs. But that, again, we're recruiting candidates. The candidates that do come into the party should know that if they do not follow the party platform of being strong on Second Amendment, being being supposedly a pro-life organization, that we're going to hold them to task and monitor their votes and look at what they've done in the legislature in regards to those measures. That's all I have to say.
All right, Brian, you have a comment on all this?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Shelby. Really, I think it should be the vote of the people. I go with that all the time, and my people say, "Well, Brian, you're not a Republican, you're a populist." Well, maybe I am. Maybe I believe too much in the people, for the Republican Party, but that's just the way I feel. And as far as Sprague versus Marcel, I've only had one interaction. I had an interaction with Sprague a couple of years ago. I believe he was in Lake County. He was speaking at the Veterans Park. And Leonard Gilbert and I and a former commissioner got to speak to him about property taxes. And it was very clear to me that Sprague didn't know anything about the 20 mil floor. So when I found out that someone in his position that didn't even understand the property taxes, that was really an eye opener to me. And is the guy really should he really be in a position in authority at the state level? I in my opinion, no.
Joe, if I could jump in, I think we need a little bit of a history lesson, because every time I hear about the Blue 22, I laugh, because no one remembers, at least so few people remember, that the whole get Democrats to vote with us to win the speakership race, Householder invented that with one of his top lieutenants, Derek Merritt. And so when Jason Stevens took Derek's tool and used it against him, I mean, it solidified what I warned the party against. I said, once you open Pandora's box and you normalize allowing Republicans to vote with Democrats for speaker, it's going to become a factor every other race. It's going to happen again and again. And I can't really sympathize with Derek Merrin when he invented the trick. It ended up getting used against him after Ryan Smith supporters like myself cried out, but no one seemed to remember that Derek Merrin literally invented the trick that was used to beat him. He's the one who started it along with Larry Householder. And so I can't really blame the representatives who saw an opportunity to get leadership positions by going on the winning team, many of whom were far more conservative than the folks that Matt Huffman backed to run against them. I can't really blame them. They didn't start it. It was a contest between a guy who invented voting with Democrats and a guy who used it against it. Neither of them were blameless in that contest. But what we've seen is that the promise that Matt Huffman was going to be the most conservative speaker in forever has not materialized. The man literally came out against the SAVE Act and specifically said he disagreed with Donald Trump. That is outrageous.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, guys. I
do want to say something, because I was on the inside of that vote. And John, I really care about you, but we had a closed door vote. It wasn't exactly the same process. Householder went behind the scenes and acquired the votes, but there was no prior vote. We took a vote as a caucus behind closed doors. We gave our word. We took a vote. Marin won by 3. And then the others went out, made a plan, and then defeated Marin on the floor. It wasn't exactly the same. And look, again, I have moved on. I have moved bills in my own committee of those who did what they did. I have no ill will. A couple of them, I'd like them to apologize to me for what they did, because I trusted them. And they never have. But I have to say, when you have a child who, and I'm not calling them children, what I'm saying is, if you have a child who made a mistake, and you deal the punishment, you don't keep punishing them over and over and over and over for the same mistake. Look, I know it was purposeful. Okay. It was a devious mistake. Even if the kid made a devious mistake, there comes, okay, they were punished.
Now you're talking about the blue 22, Jen?
Yes.
Okay.
They were censured. They were punished. We got to move on. Okay. So for that, I would say I've moved on, but I think we have to be really clear, John, that we made a vote. We gave our word. If they were not happy with the results of the vote behind closed doors, that should have been discussed and duked out behind closed doors, not on the floor, because I felt that it was deceptive and it was not professional, and it was not what I expect from the Republican Party. But again, that was then, this is now. I've moved on. I love them all. I really particularly love several of them very much, and they're great fighters. Look, Jay Edwards was and I give credit where credit's due. Jay Edwards and Scott Wiggum were the ones who shepherded SB 2322 and reined in the governor, and we had to override that veto. That Jay Edwards has been a fierce medical freedom fighter. And I say that with all due respect because I endorsed Rogner. So I did not know, though, at the time Jay was running. I will say that. So I endorsed before I knew that she had a competitor. But Rogner brings to the table her own gifts and her own skills and her pro-life stance and the fact that she shepherded the heartbeat bill and all of that. So it's going to be a tough race. I think it's fair to weigh the odds and weigh them both and look at them, and the voters make the decision.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a good race, and it's the way it's supposed to be in a primary. Christina Rogner against Jay Edwards and stuff. Okay, I want to get your take on this. You can say anything you want or not say anything, and then we can move on. But I do have a question for you as far as Ron Ferguson, who was left off the endorsement list of the state representatives. Do you have any comment on that at all? Or?
Well, it's definitely disappointing because he's part of our caucus, and maybe this is because of my military background, but I don't believe that the general of the team should be pitting us against each other. I think that it's challenging from a loyalty perspective behind the scenes for us now. I think that it's really tough. And again, I've served with Ron now for 5 going on 6 years, and yet I'm also a combat veteran with previous Senator Hoagland. So it's just that I really believe that it's put us all in a situation where we either have to publicly go against the speaker to stand with our colleague, or we remain silent and look weak. And that really puts a lot of us in a really tough spot. So I know that's a non-answer.
That's a non-answer to a question. But let me just ask you this, and you don't have to answer it now. But is Huffman, is he kind of got his? Does he run a tight ship, maybe too tight of a ship, and if you step out of line or something, he doesn't like that, or what? Or am I off base on that? What is your thought on that? And then we're going to move on. But remember, a lot of people have no clue who Huffman is who are watching. He's the Speaker of the House, and nobody knows who Ron Ferguson is either.
That's right.
He's one of us. He's a state representative, and
That's right.
for what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to endorse everybody, and Ferguson's name was off the list. I talked to Ferguson. It sounded pretty petty, but I just want to get if you have a thought on that. And you don't have a thought, that's fine.
The speaker has been very, very kind to me in most cases. There's a couple of bills I'd like him to move, like HB 12 and the Right to Try Act, and we're working through that. He has been gracious to me in a lot of ways. I am very naive in politics. I hate playing the games. Ron has stood for hard things and has rubbed some of my colleagues wrong.
The wrong way.
let's say.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
But you know, Ron and I have had our own words, but I still would not ever go against him, and I supported him and still do, and I just am not going to go against one of my colleagues. I can't do that, and I think it's partly because I'm big on team. Some people hate that about military members, but there's a loyalty factor. I have a certain loyalty to the speaker, but I also have a certain loyalty to my colleague whom I've served with and who's saved my rear end from making bad non-conservative votes on on more than one occasion. And so I get that some people don't like a person. Hey, there are probably people on this listening to this call right now that don't like me. I exasperate my colleagues because I'm really honest with them, and I'm not going to stop doing that. But
No, you don't have to stop.
Do you endorse against them, and do you harm them? I don't know.
I know it's a tough question.
crazy.
That's a tough question. I just threw it at you real
creates
quick. You didn't have time to think
distrust.
about it or anything. But I want to move on here. We're
right.
going to be talking about Bill
Joe, Ron
508.
Ferguson though is he's for the Ron Ferguson is for the abolishment of property taxes. So Ron Ferguson, whoever he's running against, he gets a big thumbs up from me.
All right, there you go.
And
Now, the thing
so-
with Ron Ferguson was he was a big proponent of going after the Blue 22, and he's done a lot of good things. So I was a little bit surprised about that. Stuart Motes, I'm
Joe,
retired military
Joe.
as well. Wait, let me read this. Stuart Motes, I'm retired military as well. I'm big on Ohioans.
But
If the team is
Stuart-
corrupt, I don't need to stand with the team.
But
Okay.
Stuart, the whole team is not corrupt. That's the problem. The whole team is not corrupt. You can't say a Republican is a Republican. I get so frustrated. Just because I have an R behind my name does not mean I'm equal. And I'm not going to name names, but I have been a liberty stand fighter. Am I a screw up sometimes? Absolutely. Will I screw up again? Yes, I will probably have my fair share. But we're not all the same. We're not all screw ups. We are not all the same. We're just not. And a Republican is not a Republican is not a Republican. And back to what Shelby said, holding us accountable to stand on the platform. And Shelby, call me on it. If I am not standing on the Republican platform, I want people to call me on it, because maybe I'm misguided because I thought I knew. I did prefer the last Trump platform before this last one because it was stronger on life. But I think I believe, I mean, don't we all, but I believe I'm a quintessential Republican and I stand on the platform. So Stuart, I'm sorry you're disappointed, but I do pray that I earn your respect, because I respect you as a fellow veteran and you're my brother.
All right, go ahead, Commish.
So I say this with love too, Jennifer, because I think you do an amazing job as a representative, and I'm only disagreeing because I think that Ryan Smith deserves his due. But there was a caucus vote for Ryan Smith too, and there was a press release announcing that he was the chosen
Really?
speaker candidate. So it really was apples to apples comparison.
Really?
And I'm not defending either one. They were both wrong. I just find it ultimately ironic that Derek Marin would use this tactic with Larry Householder and then go after his colleagues viciously when they used it against him successfully. So I view the Blue 22 as really just a Huffman campaign tactic, and it worked well. It made him Speaker of the House. I respect what works, but we have to be real. It was a campaign tactic, and many of the people who supported him supported Larry Householder, who did the exact same thing.
So you think it was all a setup? Do you think the Blue 22 thing was all a concerted, like?
Well, hang on a second, guys.
Wow.
Hang on one second. 'Cause I
Complicated.
don't want.
We're going into
Listen.
conspiracy here.
Yeah, hang on a second. Time. I don't want to. What I don't want is a conversation going back and forth just between us, and the people watching have not a darn clue what the hell we're talking about. Okay, so let's
That's
move
all
on
right.
here,
Yep.
because that was a long time ago. The Blue 22 is a long time ago. Householder, that goes back quite a ways, and so let's concentrate. Let's talk about House Bill 508, if we could, from
Yes,
them.
thank you.
And
Thank
so
you,
what-
Joe.
let
for
me
the
give an
relief.
intro here. Let me give an intro. House Bill 508, Enact the Better Access to Health Care Act. The bill aims to modify laws governing the practice of advanced practice registered nurses, APRNs, to improve
Yes.
health access by reducing administrative barriers while maintaining patient safety standards. You're going to have to
That's right.
explain this. Now, it's went into the House Medicaid Committee on October 15th. It's going to undergone 3 hearings in the Medicaid Committee, and the most recent one is November 18th, but it sounds like it's kind of stalled and going nowhere since. So fill us in, please. What is this all about, please?
Well, HB 508, I am one of the joint sponsors with Democrat Rachel Baker. She's a PhD nurse at University of Cincinnati and an educator there. And we have a healthcare shortage. Since at least my knowledge, 2021, we have been losing 8% of our family practice docs in Ohio every single year and only replacing 2%. So a lot of people talk about rural healthcare deserts, but I'm here to tell you that desert is expanding into the suburbs. Even in Westchester, Ohio, and in Southwest Ohio, in this past week, I'm aware of 3 family practice physicians who are retiring. They are not going to be replaced. We must do something. We have a mental health crisis in Ohio. We have psychiatric nurse practitioners. Now, let's talk. What is an APRN? An APRN is board certified nationally and at one of 2 board certifications to practice. That is, they do up into and including prescribing drugs, treating diabetes, taking care of strep throats, doing a sports physical. They do all of those things. And we are practicing in Ohio. However, Ohio does not allow nurse practitioners, I am one, to practice at that board certification that we were certified to practice at nationally. So Ohio we are allowed to practice up here. Ohio allows us to practice down here. And get this, our current law requires that if I want to practice here, I have to pay money in this space to get up here. And guess who that money goes to? Physicians. And it gets even worse. So at a Medicare Medicaid patient, so the nurse practitioners practicing down here, they have to sign an agreement called an SCA. They have to pay a physician monthly anywhere from $500 to $5,000 a month to be able to practice up here. And then if it's a Medicare Medicaid patient, that physician who is collaborating with them, that they had to sign that care agreement, the SCA, standard care agreement with, the physician gets to then bill 15% because in Medicare and Medicaid, an NP only makes 85% of what a physician makes. So that physician not only makes $500 to $500 just to collaborate, which we rarely, if ever, call that physician, and then they get to bill the other 15%. So if an office visit is $100 on Medicaid, the doctor would, the nurse practitioner would make $85. The physician who collaborates with that nurse practitioner can bill for the other $15. So it's quite a money-making thing. And the Ohio State Medical Association, which is directly related to the AMA, and the AMA, I will remind you, just lost a lawsuit because they wanted to lop off breasts and penises of young children, teenagers, 15, 16, 17, 18. They just lost that lawsuit. And the Ohio State Medical Association is the arm of the AMA in Ohio. They have been fighting that. And we need the access to care so that physicians and nurse practitioners can practice and see patients, and our people, Ohio, can have access to care. The other significant thing for me is I am chair of the Medicaid committee. We spend just in medication alone annually $6 to $7 billion with a B per year in drugs. We spend billions and billions every year, and it's 51% of our budget in Ohio is Medicaid. If I can put nurse practitioners as healthcare homes without collaborative agreements, that space I told you about, I can save 17% in our costs. And that data comes out of New York. 27 states and 3 territories already have what I'm asking for here. And so
is it going to come out of committee sometime soon?
Well,
Any
it's in my
ideas?
committee. And
Come out of committee, yeah.
and I'm hoping if we can get one more vote that we will be able to get this out of committee. My bill requires that a nurse practitioner collaborate for 5,000 hours before they can practice by themselves. But we always collaborate, whether I call a colleague and say, hey, I'm seeing this odd thing. What do you think? We collaborate. That's what healthcare does. We don't operate in a silo. So beautiful opportunity for patients in Ohio and for people to have choices. Look, if you don't want to see a nurse practitioner, you shouldn't have to. But if you want to, you should be able to. And we would increase access to care and increase the healthcare of Ohioans all over the state. So it's really a fantastic bill.
Well, okay, what I want to do is, Brian, do you have a question on any subject? Go ahead for Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer, that's the first time I've heard of the bill. I've seen nurse practitioners on a variety of things, and I find them to be, very qualified. And trying to get a doctor, I don't know if it's because it's, we're all aging out and we're all headed to the clubhouse, but something seriously has happened in our medical community.
Yes.
It seems to be going the way of our education system. So something is broken, and I appreciate you stepping up for the citizens of Ohio.
Thank you. Thank you. I rarely ever have a vested interest and I guess because I'm an APRN, I understand this better than most, but it is time for us to meet all the other states, 27 and 3 territories, and expand our access to care so that people have a choice. So, I believe, obviously medical school is not a lot of, it's not a lot of clinical, it's a lot of book work. And then they do a 2-year residency. If it's family practice, it might be 3. I don't know how long every residency, I don't know that they're all the same. But you could take a nurse practitioner with 5-10 years of assessment skills, and I would put that experienced nurse practitioner against a 5-year family practice physician's assessment skills any day. And again, we have an access to care issue. Physicians, I don't know if people know this, they don't have to take Medicare patients. So when my parents returned to Ohio and they came to my region, Southwest Ohio, they had a hard time finding a physician. In fact, my family practice doc refused to take my patients. My parents, because they were internal medicine patients, and my family was healthy. He didn't want to take the internal medicine. My dad was in CKD. My mom had type 2 diabetes, so more complicated. So there's great results and great, absolutely. Whoever it is they're saying, can you contact me? Yes, but I need actual evidence or some way or some action item. I can't just say, hey, we think it's there. And the Medicaid fraud is addressed by the AG as well as the auditor. And so it's the AG with 166 staffers that actually does the research. But if you have something, I will definitely go for it.
Let me get Shelby, do you have a question for Jennifer on anything? Go ahead.
Anything.
Well, within reason.
You can't put me on the spot. I used to have town halls that were live.
Right. It's hard to pin her
Make
down.
it an easy question.
Sure. I'll make it an easy. This is a can of corn coming at you.
All right.
Is there anything else that you're working on?
Oh, there's so many.
I know. Name the top one that you'd like to see move forward, or that we could get the word out to try and maybe help you.
That one, 508 is very important. I will be causing a little bit of a kerfluffle with Jonathan Newman, but I'm not at liberty to talk about that yet. But I promise you, Shelby, because I know you will like it. But right now, I can't mention that one, but that one's going to come up and it'll cause a little bit of angst among some of my left opponents, but we'll be moving that. And then I would expect to see some more very strong conservative legislation coming out of my office. I just got a new aide And so she's getting up to speed. She's been with me for 1 week. I have a bill, the Micro Enterprise Home Kitchen Bill in the Senate. I'd love it if you would call your senators to pass that bill. And we just had sponsor testimony this week, as well as the Joshua Alert, which helps autistic children should they elope. We call it elope. If they disappear, this combines our Amber Alert so that we might save lives for our autistic children. And this bill was done in the name of Joshua Al-Latif, who died in Westchester, Ohio, which is my district. There are many bills that I have. I have the Right to Carry Act that was actually sponsored through OGO, the Ohio Gun Owners. And there are portions of that bill. It's a very heavy lift, but I believe you should be able to carry anything concealed that you want to. And I'm not just talking about, an AR or something. I'm talking about a knife for people that don't want to carry a handgun or brass knuckles or something like that for self-defense. And currently you cannot carry a knife if you are using it to conceal carry as a weapon. There are certain rules about if you're using a knife as a tool, but that's a different part of the code. And so we have some cleanup to do with our concealed carry in Ohio. If you have a misdemeanor 1 or 2, you cannot carry in Ohio because, of course, the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed if you have a misdemeanor 1 or 2, right? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, misdemeanor 1 or violent offenses. We can talk about that. What I'm saying is the bill also allows you to be proned without probable cause. So if someone sees that you're carrying, they can prone you on the ground and tell you to get down simply because you're carrying. We have some cleanup to do with our constitutional carry. So there's that, and there's many others. So thank you for asking, Shelby.
The thing I didn't know was that if you cannot conceal a knife, but you can conceal a gun. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
And the other thing you can't do is you cannot have your shotgun in the back of your truck that's loaded in your window, like
you
we
can't
used
do
to
that
do when we were younger, and also have a handgun in your car. If you have that loaded and you have the handgun loaded, you are outside of the law and can be charged and become a felon for that. So we've got some cleanup to do with some of those types of things, and that bill is a cleanup bill for that.
Let's go to the commish. Hey, John.
Hello. Well, I'd like to say we really do need to do more to highlight the state representatives like Jennifer Gross who are supporting the amendment to abolish property taxes, because so few have been brave enough to come out and say what the people need is a sea change here. It's not enough to nibble around the edges. Property taxes are out of control. And so really want to take a chance to highlight Jennifer along with Tex Fisher. And, Ron Ferguson, I don't know if he's signed a petition, but he has publicly expressed support for abolition. And those are the only 3 state reps or senators that I'm aware of that have taken a public stand. Jennifer, are you aware of anyone else who's publicly come out in support?
No, I'm honestly not. I think my stance came because, we voted on all those property tax reform bills, and then the governor vetoed all of them. And I'm waiting to see the results of all of that. And the people are just, again, I've had really compelling cases in my district of people that are like, this isn't working. I don't know. I do have trustees who disagree with me, and I'm willing to keep the conversation going, but I'm willing to roll up my sleeves to do what it takes for us to reform our property tax and the dependence on the taxpayer for every single thing. The challenge is that the people keep voting for levies and keep raising their own taxes, local control, all of those kinds of things. But still, John, I will stand with the people every single time. I will continue to stand for lower taxes, limited government on every turn, and that is where I am. And so, will it be perfect? If we abolish property tax, I think Brian has even said, it's not going to be perfect, but is it perfect now? No.
Oh, it's horrible right now.
I guess what are we going to do?
I think what we're trying to do is get some kind of meaningful reform, but they're not going to do it unless we nuke the system. Here's Florida here is becoming the most compelling state in the USA. 0% income tax rate, soon to be 0% property taxes. Now, the 0% property taxes, they're talking about your primary residence. And I
Yes.
thought this was a pretty nifty idea. And it is, Ron DeSantis came up with this, and the idea is that, hey, we're not abolishing all property taxes. We're abolishing the property tax on your primary residence and keeping the property taxes for any income-producing, type of assets or something like that.
And we
let
did
me
just do
throw this
that,
over to
John.
Brian for 1 second. Brian,
No.
is that an idea you'd be in favor of? What they're doing in Florida? I know we're not going to change. I'm not talking about changing, but I'm saying if they kind of said, "Hey, we got to do something," that would be pretty ideal, right?
I have to be careful what I say because I find out if I say something, all of a sudden there's a ripple through the state that says Brian Massey is now he's abandoning the citizens. We've made a commitment when we started this to the citizens that we're going to see this be on the ballot because we're going to starve the beast. I have a question, though, that people also ask me. The very first question, well, how are we going to replace these property taxes? But then I find out that there are many legislators and candidates for office that are saying we are going to abolish the income tax. The income tax for Ohio, as I understand it, brings in $10.7 billion. No one ever asks, how are we going to replace that $10.7 billion when you abolish the property taxes? So I ask the question here and now, what are we going to do when you eliminate the income tax? And I'd love to be able to ask Vivek Ramaswamy that directly. So I take my position here of sort of commanding what is happening with the abolishment of property tax movement. And I am not selling out the citizens of Ohio. We have told them we're going to get this on the ballot, and that's what we're going to do.
No,
I think
support that. Yeah.
can't. I think we can't do both, and so I see us staying at a flat tax. That would be my bet. I don't gamble, but in fact, I voted against expanded gambling, the predatory gambling that we have right now. There will be some bills coming out against that, by the way, but I see us kind of sitting for a while at a flat tax. We are competitive with all the states around us at 2.75, and we'll be staying there. I just don't see that we can do both right now. But again, I come back to our responsibility in the legislature to decrease our spending. Beth Lear asked for a 1%. It was called the Penny Jordan from Chris Jordan. God rest his soul. I miss him all the time. And Chris had a bill to reduce government spending by 1%, not increase at all in the budget. I mean, reduce spending by 1% in a budget. And we always increase. That's why when people say, oh, we balance our budget. Yeah. And we raise it every year and we balance it with increased spending. See how that works? So when people think of balanced budget amendment is the cat's meow, be careful, because then we just raise the limit. And then we say, well, it's balanced. So
yeah, you
that's
guys are
Joe, if I
always.
may add-
I got to say something. You guys are always raising that budget.
yeah.
Every
I
year it goes up
disagree.
a few billion at least.
I
Joe,
disagree.
let me mention again. I've said this many times, but it bears repeating, and that is the total revenue for the state keeps increasing, but the state legislators, they spend more money on libraries than they do on local government funds. The local government funds in 2011, my research shows very clearly, Kasich in 2011, if you look at the graphs we've created, there is a precipitous drop in the amount of local government fund, the revenue distribution from the state to the local governments. The local governments try to get the state legislators to increase it, and they don't. So what that means is that more money is coming into the state legislators are starving the local communities because they're not giving them their fair share of it. So all the money comes from the counties. The case in point is the marijuana tax brought in over $3 billion, and only 36% of it goes back to the local communities. So 64% is being held by the state, and that allows the legislators to fund their special interest groups.
Brian, can you handle that chat right there real quick? Someone wants to know how to collect signatures for no property taxes. I don't see any packets on the website.
Yeah, what we thank you very much for the question. Again, our website is axohtax.com. You can sign up to register to be a circulator. We're trying to keep track of things. We want to make sure that we know who is circulating signatures, because there are some rules and regulations that you have to follow, and we're trying to do this in a business-like fashion where we are controlling who's getting the petitions, so that we know for sure that they know how to collect a signature of registered voters, and there's many other. You can't put multiple counties on petitions and that sort of thing. So we ask that people just register to be a circulator. And because what we don't want to do is, we don't want to have to get 1 million signatures to get 413,488 signatures, valid signatures. So we ask that you just register your name, and so that we can contact you.
And that's so you train them correctly, right, Brian? So that they can learn how to circulate.
Correct.
Great.
All right, we've only got a minute or two. I want to give you a chance here. So the floor is yours, Jennifer. And as we always say, you do a fantastic job as a
I
state rep.
appreciate you guys. I hope I haven't said too much and got my head cut off by leadership and stuff. But I would like to say this, and I've started saying this everywhere I go. I want people who think they could never run for office, think to yourself, if you're listening to this podcast right now, and you say, I could never run for office, you are the exact person who needs to run for office. People that have never been on the inside need to be the ones that come on into the inside. You'll be here roughly 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 8 years, maybe another 8 in the Senate, and then you leave. But we need people, we need the government of the people, for the people, and by the people to engage. I need you to look at the Medicaid rolls. There's some public documents out there. I am not the end-all be-all person over Medicaid, but if you find things that you believe need to be looked into, we will be in the joint Medicaid committee of the Senate and the House next month, bringing in the auditor and the AG to talk about what can we do to investigate fraud in Medicaid, because that's what I'm responsible for. So I appreciate all of you, and I thank you, Joe, for giving me a platform, and I thank you, Brian, John, and Shelby, for your time tonight. And I really appreciate all the work that you do for the people of Ohio.
Well,
Thank
God bless
Jennifer.
you. We
Good luck
appreciate
to
you very, very much.
Representative Groves.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer.
Thank you, guys. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you again. All right, we're going to get to our next guest here, Chris Long. I can see you, Chris. You're waiting. But wait, before we get to Chris, I want to, Kent, you probably want to make a few announcements here, correct?
Yeah. Just wanted to thanks Stu for the 200 stars. Let me put up the. Here you go, Joe. I'll put up the website. You can jump over to the website now. We are also just thank you, Stu, on Facebook for the 200 stars. Thank you for the support over there. Also for the Rumble subscription from Ruth over on Rumble. Make sure to go down to Rumble, and you can also click on the $ for a Rumble rant or gift.
This is Savannah Hernandez.
We also do a if you are into crypto, there's a tip under the video. If you want to send us a tip, we would appreciate that way. Or you can join locals and be a subscriber. And we're going to be planning on doing some other Zoom calls, maybe more in depth with representatives, politicians, other ideas that we're talking about. So make sure to join. It does help us to continue to do this. It does cost money. Make sure to go to ohiopoliticalnews.com/shop, and you can definitely go into any kind of merchandise that you can, a mug, a T-shirt, and just please check that out too. And then again, share this out on top of just following or liking on the platform that you're watching. Sharing this out is a huge help for us to get a reach, because that's the most important thing, is we're trying to get the reach to everybody in Ohio about Ohio political news. Thank you for just the support that we saw tonight. I'm seeing it on a couple other, even on a stream that we didn't have an issue. Well, you guys were in executive committee most of the time, but thank you for the support, even on a stream like that. So thank you for that. And we will let you get back to the show, Joe. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kent. Really appreciate it. And again, if you're in the chat room, feel free to chat. Okay. We really enjoy it. Let's get our next guest up here. Well, please chat. All right. Here he is. There he is in living color. Chris Long, Ohio Christian Association. Is that right?
Ohio Christian Alliance.
Ohio Christian Alliance. I was just checking to make sure. How you doing tonight, all right?
Good evening, Joe. Good to be with you.
Okay, we got a really great discussion here coming up. I know you primed me a little bit with the whole idea. I believe we're going to talk about everything that's happening with the daycare fraud and some of the other fraud going on in Columbus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Would you like me to get started?
Go ahead. It's all
okay,
yours.
So we're probably going to break some news here tonight on the forum, so that's good news for folks. But there is progress in all this, okay? So let me say that Monday was a busy week as I filled in for Doyle and Jen down at WRFD. It's a drive time afternoon talk show host. And I had with me State Representative Josh Williams. And Josh, of course, gave his testimony on the bill that he introduced that will give the state auditor, the state attorney general, and the legislature more oversight when it comes to investigating and looking at the records of these different government agencies that are just shoving money out the door, okay? And once it goes out the door in application to these various entities, whether it be child care, health care, transportation, Medicare, as you just heard, there hasn't been much oversight by the DeWine administration in regard to this, and they've actually been a self-policing authority. Well, that never works well, okay?
No, you can't. You cannot police yourself. That's impossible.
That's why you have audits and other eyes on the books, as it were, right? So let me start with this. The Ohio fraud story that just won't go away. The Somalian community, child care, health care, transportation, and other government services fraud is a story that just won't go away. It is percolating under the surface, and it is a ticking time bomb. After the independent journalist reports on the Minneapolis massive fraud in the Somalian community of Greater Minneapolis by Nick Shirley, attention quickly turned to the second largest Somalian community in America, Columbus, Ohio. Quickly, independent investigative journalists began knocking on doors and doing search of addresses where the money from state government was sent for the purposes of child care, health care, and transportation services. The shocking reports revealed that these were empty offices. The child care facilities had few or no children coming or going, and yet these entities received hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases millions of dollars, from state and federal government. This did not escape the attention of some state and officials who began doing their own investigations into the allegations and whistleblower reports. State Auditor Keith Faber and his staff are working to secure more records for review. State Attorney General Dave Yost stood in a press conference with State Representative Josh Williams supporting legislation that would grant more overseeing authority of these programs by the state legislature and state auditor's office. 42 House members, and I think one of them was just on your program, co-signed the legislation. That was Representative Gross co-signed this as well. So there's a report also this week out of Massachusetts, a Democratic state auditor. is running into a firewall in her own state, and she's in a fight with members of her own party, the governor, the attorney general. They won't allow her to do proper audits. She has the same problem of massive fraud in the state of Massachusetts, and the people passed an overseeing auditing authority by 72% on the ballot, and yet they're stonewalling her. She said, she did this on Fox News, and this is a gal, she said, look, if they didn't have anything to hide, they wouldn't be doing this. Well, I say the same thing about state government. If the DeWine administration didn't have anything to hide with the Department of Children and Youth, they wouldn't be forestalling people asking for records. Let me explain. State Representative Josh Williams has been on this for a while, going back to last year. He has asked for the Department of Children and Youth, okay, which used to be Department of Job and Family Services. DeWine changed the name of it. And that's where this money for the child care services and the home health care and all that comes out of there, okay? So he's asked for specific records, and Kara Wendt, who is the director, and her staff and her legal team has withheld any records from coming out of that office to the state legislature. But it gets worse. It gets worse. The state auditor told me, Chris, they're not becoming forthcoming with records I'm requesting as state auditor. So
okay, let's stop here a second. I want people for this to sink in with some people here, because this is big stuff. Okay, so you did a records request, and they basically said go pound salt, and now you're saying the auditor for the state.
I can read it for you right here.
The auditor. Okay, but I just want people to understand what we're talking about here. The auditor himself wanted some. He wanted some backup information, probably about the audits, or I don't know what. But anyhow, he was denied.
Yes. He
was denied information as well.
That's right.
This is crazy. And this is the website here, the Department of Children and Youth, and this is the one who runs it.
That's Kara Wendt. That's
Kara Wendt.
Yes. She serves at the pleasure of Governor DeWine. That's all, okay? I mean, none of us hired her. DeWine hired her, so she's doing whatever he wants her to do. But I've got a warning for these folks tonight, okay? Because the law is very clear. To hide a crime is a crime. And I would really alert public officials, you need to come forward with information if you have it. If you're working in these departments, you need to come forward and you need to present the information. Because right now, the state auditor said to me this week on the phone that I am getting more information, Chris, from whistleblowers than I am from the administration. Now, folks, these are all Republicans, just like in Massachusetts, where it's all Democrats. This isn't a left or right or Democrat or Republican issue. This is about your tax money. This is about our money being defrauded away by the Somalian community in the multiple millions of dollars that these people have basically pilfered from the public treasury. These are federal and state dollars. Now, the feds are investigating. Now, John Solomon of Just the News, he reported that a few weeks ago. And we're going to get to that report in just a minute, because that was really earth-shaking what he divulged, because the connection between Minneapolis and the massive fraud that's going on there has a direct contact to Columbus, Ohio, and the Somalian fraud that's going on here. Let me explain. John Solomon reported, as federal agents, the Justice Department revealed to him that over the last few years, they have trafficked $136 million in cash, leaving John Glenn International Airport in Columbus out of the Somalian community to the Somalian community in Minneapolis. They packaged it up, what became $700 million, and they sent that over to Somalia. And the feds believe that Al-Shabaab, the terrorist group, is a recipient of a lot of those monies. Now, it sickens me as a Christian organization, yes, the Ohio Christian Alliance, that our tax dollars are ending up in the hands of a terrorist network that is actually killing Christians in Africa. Now you say, well, that's a different terror group in Nigeria. You don't think they work in tandem and association at times? Of course they do. If you look it up in AI, though they may not be associated together, they've had training facilities together. Who's paying for those training facilities? Unfortunately, folks, it looks like we are. It looks like we are. The massive amounts of money that has made its way to Somalia by, again, child care services that they're not providing for children. Home health care, what's that? Well, that's like, if your mom was still at home and you didn't want to put her in a nursing home, and actually it saves the state and the federal government money if you care for mom, there is a program, home health care services, because it does take a lot of work to do that. And you can apply for that, and it's one of the government programs. The state auditor is going to make a major announcement, and I don't want to precipitate, get ahead of him, in other words, what he's about to announce in the next couple weeks. But he is going to announce.
Now, you said the state auditor, Keith Faber.
This is the auditor, Keith Faber. He's working behind the scenes. Believe me, he's frustrated, okay? And you can imagine how
taxpayers are frustrated. Hang on one second, Chris, because there's a lot of stuff for people to take in, and they're not familiar with it. I want to play this. I'm going to back up just a minute. This is about the daycare centers. You had Josh Williams. You interviewed him. This is a short segment right here.
The unfortunate part about the state of Ohio is our processes are intentionally turning a blind eye. When we go into a daycare center and we find irregularities in attendance recording sheets, essentially, we're not flagging that for potential a fraud investigation like we should to the auditor's office. Instead, DCY is making an internal determination that they don't think it's fraud, and as long as they get their money reimbursed, they walk away and everyone wipes their hands clean. But our legislation that we've introduced actually calls for, one, DCY to be a mandatory reporter to the auditor's office. Two, it creates a lawful authority in the Attorney General to investigate daycare fraud, which they currently don't have that authority right now. And it provides a robust oversight to make sure that the kids that they are saying are present in the daycare centers are actually present on the days that they are billing the state of Ohio. I think this is reasonable oversight to prevent fraud in our daycare systems.
Okay, so what he was saying there, and I know you know what he is saying there because it was from your podcast or your radio show, but let me just kind of rephrase it here so that I can understand it, everybody else can understand it. So that was Josh Williams.
Yes.
He's a state rep out of the Toledo area. And it sounds like, and you had said this earlier when you first came on, but doesn't hurt repeating. It sounds like that department polices itself.
That's
the
right.
Department of Children and Youth. They decide if there's fraud. And if they say there's no fraud because the auditor cannot act unless the DCY says that there's a fraud case, correct?
Well, first of all, the auditor, what he is doing, he can audit government agencies. So he can audit the Department of Children and Youth. But what he audits is the audit that they themselves have conducted, okay? So the forms that they filled out, that's what he's able to review. But he's also able to go a little further and do some investigation. That's what he's doing. And he's found out some things on his own and with whistleblowers, because when those whistleblowers come to him, then he can pursue that. What he can't do is on-site inspections of an individual business, a private business. He can only audit government agencies. That's the extent of his authority. In other words, DCY needs to take their people to the street. So let's say that there's a complaint that there's a child care center reporting that they have 100 children when only maybe 20 show up, but they're charging the state of Ohio for 100, not 20, okay? They're charging them for the full 100. That's a violation right then. You get stripped of your license, you get shut down, and actually you could be referred for criminal investigation and criminal charges. Here's the problem. Kara Wendt, I'm glad you got her on the screen again. She has not referred any of these cases, even the ones that DeWine said that we found, and we withdrew their license, and we stopped giving them payments. None of those were referred for criminal prosecution. So the Attorney General can't do anything because that hasn't been referred for from the governor's office and from the Department of Children and Youth for a prosecution procedure. Now, that's why the new legislation is key, because what State Representative Josh Williams is saying, we don't want that department to be the signal man as to the end-all voice of what happens in these cases. We want to be able to determine whether something should be pursued of criminal charges. So hooray for him, and it's great legislation. I don't have the bill number in front of me. It just received a sponsor hearing this week. We'll send that out and put it on our website at Ohio Christian Alliance. But let's go back a minute to...
One second. Can I stop you?
Wait. I don't want to lose this thought.
Okay, go ahead.
Back at the beginning of the year, when this happened, DeWine did 5 days of press conferences. When this story was breaking right at the end of the year and into the first few days of January, he did like 5 press conferences a day. Through that next period. And he said, we've done 10,000 audits through this group. Here to find out, those audits, so-called, they were over several years, and their health and wellness checks, not whether they were actually, not attendance checks, not whether there was anybody there, it was an operation that was actually working, it was just health and wealth and safety. And I'm like, this is what Josh Williams tells me, right? So let me read this to you. So we made a request for the 10,000 audits that they said that they conducted. We requested for the year 2024 and 2025. This is from their legal department that came to us just last week, to the Ohio Christian Alliance. Mr. Long, this email is in response to the inquiry you sent to DCY information mailbox. In your request, you asked for on-site audits for the years 2025 and 2024. DCY is denying your request as overly broad and ambiguous. The department does not maintain records labeled as such, and your request does not provide enough specificity that DCY can reasonably identify what public records are being requested, and the letter goes on. But then to find out that State Representative Josh Williams, members of the legislature are being stonewalled by this agency. The state auditor is being stonewalled by this agency.
Wow.
Believe me, they knew what I was asking for, and this is their denial. That's right. That's the lady right there. By the way, I asked to have her email so I could send her a message. I asked to speak to her, and the staff were so rude to me and said, no, you're not getting her email. We cannot connect you. You go to the website and you fill in the fillable form, and you use the general email. They were so rude to me. I told them who I was, Chris Long, the Ohio Christian Alliance. We've been around 25 years as a public policy organization. We're licensed lobbyists at the state house. And don't think of anything, folks. We don't make any money. We're broke, but you have to be licensed to be a lobbyist, what you do. But the fact is, and I want to answer one of the questions that came up in the chat. There's a gentleman there that asked, that what it said every $10,000 has to be reported to by the bank. How are they moving this cash through the airport? It's a great question. The fact is they are. And the Biden administration, so federal authorities saw this cash in the suitcases. They waved it on. They waved it through. And so they knew it was going to Somalia. They knew it was the Somalian community. DeWine knows that there's massive fraud in the Somalian community. He's trying to wait out the clock so he gets out of office. This is his last year. So this falls in somebody else's watch. Now, where the concern is here is the Trump administration, the FBI, under Kash Patel, they're investigating in Minneapolis. We don't know how much they're doing in the red state of Ohio. Is there kind of some political intrigue here that they don't want to make a big mess with Republicans in control of this situation and blows up? But quite honestly, all of us were not aware, because these are people that make application for these services. The money was sent out. And the problem is government does not do a check, a follow-up to make sure that those services are being rendered. That's where the Department of Children and Youth, that's where they're culpable. We're just simply asking them,
Right.
did you make those follow-up visits? Did you determine that these people are actually providing the services that they say that they're doing? Have you done that? They don't want to provide us, the state auditor, the legislature, or entities like ours, and I'm sure there's others that are asking for it. They're not giving us any information. That tells you they're hiding the truth. They didn't do very many audits or on-site visits. I mean, look, you had Jack, what's his name, the investigative reporter out of Columbus. You had
Jack Windsor.
Jack Windsor was down there. I spoke to him last week, by the way. I'm going to be on Jack's program. Jack has done some investigative reporting, actually with John Rocker. They were going out there. Mahet Cook, you had Walter Kurt, you had others that are on the ground, some non-named, and doing research in the greater Somalian community of Greater Columbus. They're finding out all kinds of nefarious things. They're seeing where several entities are in one building, where millions of dollars are dispersed from government agencies, and there's nobody there to even answer a phone. You got other where the addresses are false. Now, according to the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, he said, listen, if that address is wrong and they're reporting that address, that's a violation. So there's going to be, listen, this is not going to go away because there are whistleblowers. There's people like us. We're going to keep it going. Jack Windsor is on top. This Walter Kurt, this guy's like dedicating his life to it. You should have him on your program sometime.
Yeah, we got to get him on. Hey, listen, Chris, I've got to get. I want to get some other people here discussing this, ask you questions, and let's. George Satari, are you with us tonight?
I am, and I have a lot of comments.
Go ahead, go for it.
Well, first of all, let's clear up the misnomer about the $10,000 in cash. All you have to do is fill out a form, whether you're taking 10,000 or 10 million. They may or may not query you as to where it came from and where it's going. So once you fill out the form, they can wave you through. Or the answer is, oh, the Somali community put this money together and we need to take it in cash because Somalia does not have a normal banking system and we need to get it to the poor, helpless people so they could buy food for cash or this or that. So it's an easy explanation. It's an easy form. It's not a conspiracy. The whole form in my book is nonsense, but that's beside the point. If they want to query you, they do. If they don't, they don't have to. All you have to do is fill out the form. I'm taking 10 million in my Samsonite luggage here, and that's it. So that's not a big conspiracy per se on that end, although I'm certain the customs agents or TSA got instructions, waved them through, and they're like, oh, okay, I don't want to jeopardize my job, and I don't care. So that covers that. The other problem is that the Republicans, if the Democrats were smart, thanks to Governor DeWine and his ineptness, conspiratorial position, or whatever the hell he's doing this, the Democrats have a great campaign tool in 2026. Hey, all the executive offices are controlled by the Republicans. What's going on? And even though it was basically all DeWine 24/7, 25/8, but it'll be a good campaign tool in 2026. And actually, beside the couple of YouTubers, didn't the auditor or treasurer actually hear about any of this or know about any of this? I mean, let's face it. And the third problem is less government, more individual responsibility, and with God's help, a better country. Why the Sam hell is the federal government funding everything, regulating daycare, garbage pickup, money for this, that, and the other thing? Hey, I need a new facade on my office building. Maybe I get a grant from the feds. What the hell's going on with the feds being involved in everything? Everything. Why do we even bother having states or local governments? We could just function as administrative units and the feds could run everything. Even the conservatives have bought into this nonsense.
Yeah, right. Let me go over to Brian. I want to get around the horn a little bit. Do you have a question, Brian?
No, I agree with exactly what George was saying. What do we do with DeWine? Really, the Republicans should be embarrassed. He's carrying our banner. And he's making all the Republicans look bad. I agree. The Democrats should, use that against the Republican Party. And I for one, I'm just sick and tired of DeWine's ineptness. He's saying that we eliminate property taxes, we're going to have a 20% sales tax. So he's doing the chicken little thing of the sky is falling. He's really been an embarrassment to Ohio. And again, what does Ohio first in? We're not first in anything. We're 47th in everything.
Exactly. Let me go to the commish also real quick here. And, oh, boy, sometimes I have too many things open. There he is.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I have one comment, one question. And my comment is this, and it's for Governor DeWine. Are you really stupid enough to think that you can raise sales taxes to 20% without having everyone shopping out of state? Do you not understand the elasticity of their behavior? Do you not get that I'm going to drive to Pennsylvania, she's going to drive to West Virginia, he's going to drive to Kentucky, and that will actually take in less revenue if you raise sales taxes? I mean, come on. If you don't understand Econ 101, you can't be governor of a shoebox, let alone the state of Ohio. That's my comment. Here's my question. We use the term waste, fraud, and abuse like an umbrella, but I really want to know, is this just pure stupidity and incompetence on the part of the executive branch in Ohio? Or is this malicious? Is this truly fraud, where there's some motivation to shovel billions of our tax dollars to fake daycares and home care scams? Who's getting rich off this? Is this incompetence or is this fraud? And I'd love to hear Chris Long's take on it, because it's hard to believe so many billions of dollars are just being lost.
They're not being lost. They're being sent to Somalia. And these people are driving. They're living well. They have homes. They have businesses. But 80% of the Somalian community is on welfare. Why do you need child care services when you're not going to work every day? And so, this is a big deal. And there's going to be more coming out about this. But I want to go back to something that George said. He talked about the $10,000 value and that, you have to fill out paperwork and all that. And he's absolutely correct of how he portrayed it very well. It was exactly what happened. So let's talk about the $136 million that they caught over a 2-year pay period. Do you know how much paper cash that is? If it was all in $100 bills, and it was in paper cash, in suitcases, $136 million in $100 bills would be, the weight of that is 1.5 tons of cash. That's how much money is leaving Ohio from the fraud and going to Minneapolis, then being trafficked in air being shipped to Somalia. And they were doing much larger industrial size fraud up there in Minneapolis. By the way, the thing about the Democrats don't want to draw attention to this. They know full well what's going on. They know that they're culpable. This doesn't play well for them either. This isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This is actually a citizen issue. Listen, the folks in this call, we're the tax farm. And that's all we are, is the revenue makers for whatever they're going to do, to George's point and everyone else's point on this call. So we need to get to this fraud because it's massive around the country. You had a Democrat in Massachusetts that's on top of it, fighting with members of her own party. So you've got other investigations going on in California. Scott Bassett himself said that over $1 trillion, he believes over a couple years period of the federal budget, $1 trillion is fraud of the federal budget. That's a lot of money. And so this is going to be a big deal that's not going to go away regardless of what happens in November, okay? It's going to continue because there's going to be whistleblowers, there's going to be people talking, and we're going to be tracking this down. It's not going to play well for the Somalian community because they have basically perpetrated this fraud on us. I mean, their mode of operation in Somalia is piracy. Is it any surprise that they came here? It's like, what's your job and trade? Oh, I'm a watchmaker. I'm a shoemaker. I'm a tailor. No, I'm a pirate. Yeah. So what they've done is they've come to the United States, and it's piracy on the federal government. We're the stupid ones for providing all these services they can apply for, and nobody asks them about it. Nobody follows up.
Right. And also in Somalia now, you have to have ID to vote, believe it or not. So a Somalian has to show ID in Somalia, But if he comes over here and takes that big purse of cash, he doesn't have to show ID. I do want to show you something because we're talking. This is not Somalian, but this is another person who's.
Oh, I'm glad you have this one.
Yeah, watch this one second.
This is Savannah Hernandez in Columbus, Ohio, because you've heard of daycare fraud, but have you heard about fraud in the trucking industry? Well, if you haven't, I'm currently at this location because apparently 32 trucking companies have been registered to this exact same address. Now, 16 of those companies are since inactive, but 16 of them are still active. And for
this is a woman from Turning Point USA, Savannah Hernandez. She's in Ohio now, and she went to a location where there's supposed to be 32 trucking companies in Columbus, I believe, and none of them exist. All right, so she's another Nick Shirley. She's got the camera, and she's doing her own investigative report for Turning Point USA. She's in Ohio now. I think we reached out to her because I'd love to have her on this show. I don't think she's returned or reaching out yet, but we'll try. But anyhow, Chris, this is what we need to combat all the garbage that's happening in this state. We need people like her, like you, us. We need Jack Windsor. We don't need the auditor's department who just says, well, I can't do anything because Child Services didn't tell me about it. And we don't need the Attorney General who says, I can't do anything because the auditor didn't push any of the information to me. And you go round and round, and then you got DeWine who says, we're going to police ourselves. And then you have 10,000 audits, and none of them were done about not having the right enrollment for these daycare centers, or if they're even open. Somebody goes there and just sees if there's any kind of a problem, safety hazard. This is so corrupt. Would you agree?
Yes.
Corrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it well. And I'm so glad you brought that clip up because that's a new area of fraud that's going on. Now, what is it, the PPP loans that they gave out during COVID, right? One of those trucking companies that only had 2 trucks, they applied for 2 of those loans over $300,000. It doesn't even show that they logged any hours. And so, my own banker, I remember a few years ago, he was telling me he was so upset. He said, hey, we're starting to go after some of these people that applied for these things fraudulently. He was talking on a smaller level. Well, this is on a massive level, okay? And so what do you see the liberal media doing? So this is a very telling story. So Laura Bischoff of the Columbus Dispatch. Laura is actually a liberal. She's a reporter. She's actually done some good investigative reporting over the years. I almost want to call her and tell her, it's like, what are you doing? Get on top of this thing. You're a better reporter than that. Start looking into the Somalian fraud of what's going on here. She wrote about the 9 indictments of the Medicaid fraud, and we're all over the state. And they make a big deal about that. And I think it was like just under $500,000. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars of fraud through home health care and transportation and child care services. And now we know the trucking industry as well. Wherever they can basically siphon money from the federal and state governments, that's where they're making application. And by the way, these people, they can't fill out the forms. They can't speak the language sometimes. How are they doing this? I'll tell you how they're doing it. Somebody's helping them. Somebody's showing them how to do it. And that's why we mean by an industrial size fraud operation. When this thing gets uncovered, you're going to see that there are going to be those who did all the paperwork for them, and the money just kept flowing from the government. To your point, the state auditor, he was so upset when the unemployment money was going out, and he knew a lot of it was fraud. He actually blew the whistle on that before others. State Auditor Keith Faber. He actually did some really good work on this. Now, he didn't have the ability to go after it. He didn't have, but he at least could blow the whistle on it. And he said it was like $340 million in fraud of the unemployment money that came through Ohio. So remember, Washington was pushing out all that money under Biden during the COVID shutdown. Then it came back to the states. They said, you push it out to the people. It got pushed out, and he says, wait a second. In fact, there were members of the legislature that said, whoa, wait, whoa, do not do that. And they did it anyways. And they pushed all that money out. And a lot of it went out of the country to anybody that applied for unemployment benefits. And then I have one of our advisors, in fact, my own wife, somebody applied for unemployment benefits in her name. And then this advisor to our committee, somebody applied for unemployment benefits in his name. And so you see how the fraud took place. They would take existing entity or individuals and apply for it in their name and then have them mailed out to them. And the government was so incompetent. It was just pushing the checks out, pushing the checks out, pushing the checks out.
So and it's our money too. They're so massively incompetent, and it's our money. And man, you're doing great work. I want to go around the horn real fast, one last time for everybody. So George, it's yours.
All right. Well, a couple things. We need to stop this nonsense that, apologies to Brian, about Governor DeWine being inept. If it's fraud, waste, and abuse, number one, it's criminal.
Yes.
And number two, he should be arrested and perp walked to show that the Republicans are on top of this. Second of all, there's an old saying from 1624 that gave us the title of a great book in 1964. Treason doth never prosper. What's the reason? Forfeit prosper, none dare call it treason. These sons of bitches need to be tried for treason. That's what I'm saying. They hate our republic. I don't know what Mike DeWine's problem is. He's been a rhino, a Ohio hater. He's run it into the ground. He hates President Trump. I don't know where these people come from, but they're traitors and they're treasonous. They need to be at least starting at the simple level of fraud and then maybe looked into their treasonous activity. We need to stop this, oh, they're inept, incompetent, stupid. No, these people hate America and they'll do anything to destroy it.
Yeah, they're probably very intelligent, and it's time that justice is served. Brian, last thoughts?
Well, I just asked the question. I'm all in. Just tell me, where do I go? What do I do? And, we'll go after them. But right now, it just seems that the average citizen is, they don't know what to do. We've always been relying on our state legislators to do what's in our best interest. But I'm finding that as we pull back the curtain on that, I couldn't be more wrong. They're not. The executive branch and the legislative branch, they're not, and I probably even the judicial branch, they're not doing their job for, following the Ohio Constitution. They don't follow their oath of to support and defend the Constitution. So what really are we? Are we a representative democracy, a constitutional republic? Well, no, because we got a lot of immoral people, ungodly, uneducated, immoral society, and most of our churches are not doing their job either. So we as a society we've got some severe problems, and this is just a symptom of an incompetent government that no one is held accountable. But I'm all in, George. If you got an answer, what we need to do, you can count me in.
Well, the answer is, again, we could only investigate. We are not governmental bodies. We cannot prosecute and put them up for whatever crime or treason or this, that, and the other thing. All we can do is point it out. But Brian, you're missing the major point. This will solve the problem. Spring training starts in about 6 weeks. So that's the most important. That's the most important thing for the citizenry. Things are too good.
Well, yeah, they don't. They won't react until they hit bottom, and I'm saying that's many of our people in this state. The only thing they worry about is that their favorite team is down by 10 at halftime, right. And anything else going on. It's and we see it when we ask them to sign this petition. Well, what are we going to do for roads, police, and fire? We've got to have libraries and we've got to have parks. And so I'm saying to them, well, you're willing to give up your home, which is the basic foundation of, freedom and liberty. You're willing to give that up for a book and a walk in the park. So that's what we have as a society here in Ohio, and Governor DeWine is symptomatic of that. We put people in place that really don't care about the people that they're governing.
Very good, very good. I'm going to go to the commish and John. Howdy.
So I hear Chris Long say that Governor DeWine wants to run out the clock on this daycare, this home health care, this trucking fraud. And I can't help but think that one of the reasons why the government wants to run the clock out on this is there's a very simple answer to how you stop fraud, even if you can't trust the people involved. You can't steal money that ain't there. One of the problems with overfunding government and paying too much taxes is it creates the opportunity for fraud. If we abolish property taxes, if we take $20 billion out of the system, that's $20 billion they can't steal. That's $20 billion that's not there. And when they have a legal obligation to provide essential services and no extra money left over for fraud, even the most dishonest governor, the most dishonest state legislature, the worst bureaucrats are going to have a hard time stealing money that ain't there. I like government like I like my churches, holy and poor.
Chris, you gotta wrap it up for us here. What final thoughts on all this? I'm really looking forward to having you on again sometime soon when you get more info, and let's just keep pounding away at this. But
well, and there's going to be more info. So some members of the legislature are acting, and I can understand the frustration with those on this call who are saying, there's not enough that are speaking up. They are working with Josh. And then to find out that our state auditor is doing a lot of work, okay? And because I began to doubt too, I had him on my program about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I thought, well, is he really doing anything? It's election year. He's running for attorney general. And I would want for nothing more than Keith to be able to be our next attorney general, because I think he'd be a good one. But I thought, well, is he doing anything on this? Here to find out in this phone call, he is. He's not willing to go public with it yet, nor can I disclose it. But he will be doing that he assures me, the next 10 days. We're going to hear from the state auditor in a major announcement. But, when these things happen, when the state auditor makes an announcement, people need to pay attention. Don't expect for Fox 8 and Channel 19 and Cleveland.com to give you this, oh, I didn't see it there. Well, you're not going to see it there. The clip that Joe just showed of this gal from Turning Point USA, she did some on-site investigating reporting on the trucking fraud. And that was a really good, reliable report, because I saw the whole report that she gave. And she's working with people that are in the trucking industry here in Columbus who have been their whole lives. So she's not just pulling this out of thin air. She has somebody that's working with her, just like Nick Shirley had his friend David up there in Minneapolis. But it comes with a cost. Don't forget, these whistleblowers, these investigative reporters, they face scrutiny by the political left. The left knows that this money is being used. It's not by accident, and it's not by just by whatever. It is intentional, and so they're going to protect it at all costs. Nick Shirley, with the investigative reporting he's done, his life has been threatened. His family's life has been threatened. His mom and dad had to move out of their home. Brian, speaking about your home, when you're willing to actually do something, they had to move out of their home. They're being doxxed. They've moved to several locations, and they're committed to continue to do the investigation on the fraud. That's commitment for the cause of liberty. That's what that is. And so, I don't know what's going to happen here in Ohio. I believe that eventually we're going to get to this. It's going to be massive. It's going to be, because it's linked, you see. The Somalian community in Minneapolis and the Somalian community in Columbus are linked. So whatever the feds are doing, and that's another thing, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, where are the arrests? When are we going to see really government officials being arrested? Because to George's point, we don't have the authority. They have the authority. They can conduct the raids. They can do the perp walks. They can do the indictments and the arrests. Where are they? So let's hope, as we put more and more pressure on the Justice Department, Trump's Justice Department, that we see something in the next few months. That's what our hope and prayer is.
Well, God bless you. Thank you for all your work. Great show. Really appreciate it. You guys did a fantastic job tonight. So, good reporting. Thanks to Jennifer Gross also. Thanks to everyone. Hey, guys. John, Brian, George, thank you. Shelby had to leave.
Thanks, everyone.
Chris, take care, man. Thank you again.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless.
Bye.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs.